Have you ever heard or said the phrase, "Let me be honest with you"? If you were on the receiving end, what did you think after hearing this? What did you feel? Did little message play silently in your head? Well, finally you're being honest. Wait a minute. When have you been dishonest with me? I thought you'd been honest with me up till now. Let's talk about, in today's show, what saying that phrase does, how it impacts you, your message, and your believability. Join me for episode 184, Let Me Be Honest With You, on the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. I was an engineer, and in 2008, lost my job due to the economic collapse. Jobs were scarce. I didn't know where to turn to get help updating my resume. Online services and coaches charge hundreds, even thousands of dollars. I took matters into my own hands and learned how to craft interview-winning resumes. Shortly later, I landed a job with a Fortune 500 company. I've helped many achieve similar success. Now I share my tips to create interview-winning resumes, interviewing excellence, and high-performance growth strategies on my podcast, Career Growth Made Easy. Welcome back to the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Craig Ansell. We're rolling right into episode 184, and it's titled, Let Me Be Honest With You. I have to admit, that's kind of a funky title, right? Maybe a scroll stopper, an eye catcher. Well, there's a little bit of a foundation to why I'm sharing this information with you. I think you'll find the story interesting, and that'll lead us into a little bit of today's learning and training to better ourselves. So I asked you in the intro, have you ever said or heard the phrase, "Let me be honest with you"? When, I thought about it, and if you were on the receiving end of that like I was in the story I'm going to share, what did you think after hearing this? What did you feel? Did a little message play silently in your head? Oh, well, finally, you're being honest with me. Whoa, I thought you were honest with me up till now. Wait a minute. When were you being dishonest? At what points? I think you see what I'm trying to get at here. Our words, the words we choose to say, and the words we choose not to say can have massive impacts on our stories. It can affect how people listen to us, how intently they listen, as well as what I call our believability. If you're somewhat of a storyteller, someone that just likes to talk, and you might even be afraid of or uncomfortable with silence, this could be a great show for you because we have to down select. We should reduce the words that we use and make them more important, more focused, so that we have more believability. There's power in silence. I'm going to talk about some of those points briefly during today's show, but I'll also mention some prior shows you might want to take a look at that will help you and aid you in today's discussion. During my travel this year, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I stayed at a hotel there. Well, it was another hot day in Charlotte, similar to Florida, and I simply wanted the air conditioning to cool the room down better than it had been. If you had my bet, somebody that does a lot of home improvement and also automotive improvement and upkeep, I like to keep things performing well maintained. If you had my bet, I'd think the hotel air conditioning had failed. It simply wasn't coming on, wasn't cooling. Now, beyond that, that's up to the maintenance and technicians to figure out. Finally, I got the AC maintenance guy to come up to the room, and he looked at a couple things, the thermostat on the wall, the unit, checked a couple connections, kind of put his hands in his pockets, and I noticed there was this deep, long pause, kind of like what I talked about earlier, but it was a different, in almost extremely lengthy pause, somewhat uncomfortable potentially for him. I was just staying quiet, waiting to hear his next bits of advice or what his findings were. And that's where today's show title came from. He looked at me square in the eye and he said, "I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what to do." Now, if you've been listening for some time, you'll know how I took that. I absolutely appreciate honesty. I do. And the fact that you're willing to say you know your limits, you know your boundaries, that is a big win in my book. The thing, though, using that first sentence, I'm going to be honest with you, that's the problem that we face sometimes when we talk with others. We need to talk about our true speaking and our true listening skills. I mentioned earlier about the word choices we make, but also about the word choices we choose not to use, the word choice we choose not to use, right? Silence can be uncomfortable, and as a result, we might want to just continuously talk and blurt out information until our brain catches the next part of the story that we wanted to share. Sometimes when we're doing this, we might not even get to the most critical part of our story because we've confused ourselves by rambling on and even taken ourselves off our own track, our own path. I don't know if you're there, but I can kind of feel you nodding through this microphone in your car, maybe when you're taking your walk or taking a brief break at work. We've all done it, I think, at one point or another. Some of us may be stronger communicators than others. Maybe we have a few expert communicators listening on our show. But, I think we can all be derailed at times, not only by distractions around us, but also by our own actions, our own selves. And that includes our word choice, potentially rambling. Now, how does this rambling work exactly? Well, one of the ways is through the use of filler words. We knew we had a critical point when we saw someone at work, on the street, a friend we bumped into by accident, when you're out about at the stores, maybe, you're out taking a walk or a bike ride. Oh gosh, there was something really important I wanted to tell this person. And so you say, hey, I wanted to mention something. Sure, what's up? And then as your brain searches for that key piece of information, we hear ourselves rambling and umming and ahhing and, I wanted to tell you something. Oh, what was it? And those things, if you're not familiar, those words are called filler words. I've actually dedicated an entire show to filler words. I'll find that episode number for you in a moment, and I'll share that with you. Even put a link in the show notes so you can get directly to it. But the point being about today's show, not so much filler words, but it's kind of a compliment to it, is the point of saying, I'm going to be honest with you. Number one, we need to take it really seriously, the words that we choose to use. I'm going to beat on that statement in this episode. It's very, very important for communication. If we're not taken seriously by others, even though we've conveyed what we feel was important or critical information, whether it's to a friend, a family member, a new acquaintance, you're trying to build a relationship with someone, or you're at work, especially if you're new to your role, new to a company, going up to someone and saying, I'm going to be honest with you. That might work the first couple times, but after a while, they're going to kind of expect you to start off your statement, your message, your story with that phrase. And it doesn't always work. With the wrong people in the room or on the receiving end of your story, they might actually start to process kind of like what I shared in the intro. Whoa. Thanks for being honest with me, pal. But you know what? When were you dishonest? Is it your normal policy to lie, to stretch the truth, to not exactly be honest? So that's what we're going after today, choosing the words we speak carefully. I mentioned the power of silence earlier and briefly, and many of us at times can be uncomfortable with it. It can cause us certain levels of stress, fear, anxiety, and that's why we might ramble on, if you will. And that's perfectly natural until you learn from something like today's show or another avenue of information that we can work to correct it. You'll notice I pause at times. This is perfectly normal. Although we're over the airwaves right now, I want to emphasize certain points. So I increase the speed of my speaking or I decrease it to show certain important focus to the words, to the message. And if I need a dramatic pause, I'll use it. I will tell you this, though. I'm very blessed that I've been able to be what's called a reader or a lector at my church. And maybe once a month or, every couple months, I'll be able to go up and read from the Bible. We use in the Catholic tradition the Old Testament for the first reading and the New Testament for the second reading. I may be elected or chosen for either one of those. And at times I'll get up and read in front of a couple hundred people and share the message from the book. During certain masses, like your Christmas, your Easter, special reverent events, or holiday events, you might find that the church fills up to as many as 1,000 people or more. In the past, unfortunately, prior to COVID, well, fortunately and unfortunately, right? Prior to COVID, we had attendance which was standing room only in our church. Our church holds about 1,000 people. And now that COVID's hit, we all know it's kind of been hard to get back into our routines and things. But I do encourage it if you're interested in following religion or getting back in groups or something like that. Of course, you need to take your standard health and safety measures into account. But it's good to get back out there. In any case, I got distracted. I may be reading or speaking in front of 1,000 people, and you have to learn to temper your energy, your voice, your rate of speed. And that's where it's important to only read the words that are there and try to not fill the silence with filler words which distract from the story. I hope that makes sense. Now, it's a lot easier to read from something, potentially not make eye contact with one or more people, in the case of hundreds or even up to 1,000 or more, sure. But think about it the other way. That story that you're reading, that I'm reading from the Bible, or from a book, if you will, you have your own story. You have your own message. You have your own point to get across. And that's why, I'm going to be honest with you, may not always be the best choice. If that's a phrase or a sentence that you frequently use, hey, you choose if you want to change it or not. I'm just telling you how it could potentially negatively impact you, because whenever someone makes a affirmation or a positive statement in one direction, then that leads the mind to wander and to think, wait a minute, I'm going to analyze that. When have you been dishonest with me? Okay, I think we've got that. I had mentioned about ums, uhs, filler words, filler words, right? Because silence can be uncomfortable, we'll use those things. And if you're not familiar with it, there's even the so, because apparently wasn't enough. I wanted to talk to you about something, and now there's that pause and there's that silence. So now what we've done is, and it can be difficult to try to clear those things up. Maybe you catch yourself doing it more often than not, and maybe you'll take that pause. I have another episode I talk about powerfully placed pauses, right? Craig's 3P rule, and I love it. As we discover these things, I'm happy to share them. Sometimes I go to official professional trainings. Other times it's a book I've read or something I've learned online through YouTube training, maybe visited a TEDx talk, or I've run into a fellow speaker or one of the businesses I work with, their human resources department, or one of their project management colleagues, and they've gotten they have a message to share with me. Craig, I noticed this the other day, or I picked up on this with this speaker when I was at a TEDx talk. I mean, here I've turned just that one phrase for the title of the show into an entire podcast episode, but I have experience in other categories that I can link to and share with you. And by the way, I hope you're finding it valuable. If you do find this information valuable, or perhaps you know what, this is your first time and you're trying to decide, is this show right for me? I would absolutely love to hear your feedback. I'm on multiple, let me find my words, multiple social media channels, and it's at Craig Ancel. That's CraigAncel. You can find me on Facebook, Meta, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Please reach out, leave some comments, leave some feedback. And if you're starting to get into the show, maybe willing to press that also important subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment. We can't grow without your comments, ratings, and reviews. If you use Apple, please, I'd love to get to 50 or 100 Apple reviews. It takes time to do so, even with an established podcast, and I would love for you just to take a few moments and tell me what you think. If there's areas for improvement, I'm always open for it because I love constructive criticism. And if there's something on your mind that you think would match with the Career Growth Made Easy show, something you're struggling with, a friend, a colleague, a family member went through, and you're not sure what the right answer is, let's talk through it together on the show. Give me your feedback, your questions, your comments, and I'll see what I can do to pull my experience, look into my knowledge base, my network pool, and see what might be some of the right answers to give you to help you along your journey. Because I don't think anybody should go through this alone. So, back to today's content. I mentioned about the ums, uhs, and filler words. I actually looked up the number, and see, I just said I actually, instead of I looked up the number. I have to find my own words, by the way. It's episode 55. That takes us back well over 100 shows, amazingly. But episode 55 you might want to listen to, getting rid of and filler words. I'll leave a link in the show notes as well as a text point to remind you if you forget about that after listening. So it's important, I feel, to truly be present. Do truly be present in conversations, whether you're giving, receiving, or you're having a really great, energetic back and forth conversation. I think it's important also to allow yourself to be present. We have to not allow ourselves to be interrupted by our electronic era. You know, this electronic era can override us. Over time, it can override our thoughts, our mind, and just create distractions. We don't even realize that we have bright contrast digital billboards. Now we have them on trucks, 3-panel trucks, the left, right, and back side, driving down the highway. And, it's almost like police lights blinking or emergency vehicle lights blinking. It's amazing that those things happen. And what's even more amazing is I forgot to turn off my cell phone reminder tone. So when you're recording a podcast, don't forget to do that as well as part of your checklist. Let's see. I talked about those digital ads on billboards as well as on vehicles now. And the point is, there's distractions all around us. Then don't forget, there's our smart devices. We have less time today than we've ever had, and we're always being asked to do more with less. And that less time means we have less time to communicate and less time to focus. So as we start to close today's show, my point being, we need to make our words and interactions count. So that's where this episode comes in. Think about the words you're going to say. After you say them, and maybe the conversation's over, just stop for a moment. Don't worry about it if you feel like you're overwhelmed with uhs, filler words, or crutch words, some other things that I'll share at the end of the show for you to click links on and listen to other shows and learn more if you'd like. But just work on one thing, especially as we approach the holiday season and the new year. It'd be great for you to pick up one tip, one tool, one technique to work on. So I hope that sounds good for you. So if you're serious, and I did a so there, if you're serious about improving the way that you're going to communicate going forward, looking to have a stronger, improved opportunity to communicate with colleagues, peers, your management, this might help you improve the chances for increased pay raises, increased visibility when it comes time for promotions or other, special activities at your job. I would recommend you listen to episode 55 because that's the filler word episode. But if you're really, truly serious, go to my website, craigansell.com, and click on the resources tab. I have free downloads there, including one that perfectly matches this show and the filler word show, avoiding filler and crutch words. All I ask is for your first name and your email address, and with a click, you'll have my free download. Head over to craigansell.com and click that resources tab. Alternately, there's a link in the show notes, and it'll take you directly there. And finally, you can type craigansell.com/avoiding filler words. That's all one word, avoiding filler words, and you'll go directly to the download page. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I'm always open for your feedback. It's at Craig Ansell on Facebook, Meta, LinkedIn, Instagram. And if you ever want to have just a one-on-one conversation with me through email, craig@craigansell.com. Thank you so much for being a valued listener of the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. I'm Craig Ansell, your host, closing out episode 184. Let me be honest with you. Have a great week ahead. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our channel. New episodes every Monday. In the meantime, why don't you follow us on social media at Craig Ansell on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To book a coaching appointment, download our free guides, or join our email list, check out the links in the description below.